listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We can be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring the whisper of life. As long as I can remember, I've been activated by questions. Whenever I was around someone who was pondering something, from the time I could converse, I would naturally and organically travel to where I found the answer. Not only was the information I brought back correct and in depth, it was something I had no way of knowing. Why ever would I settle for the snippets of information to be found in my young brain when the entire universe and beyond was at my disposal? It seemed like a no-brainer to me, no pun intended. Growing up, this trait was not well received. Soon I learned to keep the answers to myself rather than suffer rejection and alienation. I often found that while those around me were asking questions, they really didn't want the answers, particularly not from a dumb kid. Yet, when a question was posed, I could not help but access the information, whether I wanted to or not. What was worse is the answers often went well beyond not only my limited understanding, but the knowledge base of the times. It eventually became crazy-making. I saw more than I understood, and I understood more than I can say. Fool's crow. I remember not understanding what the adults around me didn't understand. While the laws and workings of nature were clear and logical to me, they seemed a great mystery to others. I struggled in school, trying to learn the science of the day, as it didn't agree with what the earth consistently showed me. The former I had to memorize and regurgitate to pass my classes, while the latter was a truth I could access at will. I could sense the same principles applied from the subatomic level to the workings of the universe. These principles were not static, but cyclic and consistently evolving. Most of what I was being taught in school didn't line up with what I perceived as the underlying pattern of life. It wasn't until studying with my first shamanic teacher, a Lakota elder, that I figured out where I spontaneously went for answers. Most of my students, I've had to teach how to access spirit. You, I have to teach how to come back, my teacher once stated. What do you mean by spirit, I asked. The whisper of life that moves through all things. You live there rather than among us. My old teacher taught me how to use a shamanic trance to enter the earth in order to access answers. This was simple, as I did it all the time without knowing. He then taught me how to walk back out and enter ordinary reality. This was not so easy, as I kept sliding back into the earth. It was nicer in the earth realm. The earth always held true to its nature. It didn't lie to me or reject me. It was the only place I felt truly at home. So it is to this day. Increasingly over the years in my shamanic practice, children that came wired like I am were being brought to me by their parents to help find their way. These indigo, crystal, and rainbow children don't do well in the system. They too feel as if the things they're being taught aren't adding up with what they came in knowing. Sadly, they're being invalidated, labeled ADD or ADHD, and medicated in droves. Is it better to drug our children than face an evolving truth? When the second grade, my own son came home one day and announced, "Mom, I've decided. I'm not going back to school." Do tell, son. "Well, Mom, all they do is make you sit still all day, tell you lies, and expect you to memorize them." Indeed. Much later, while researching for one of my books, I ran across a work by Johan Calleman, The Mayan Calendar and the Transformation of Consciousness. Its pages echoed back to me the truth the earth and stars had been whispering all along. Cycles within cycles, wheels within wheels, a spiraling evolution of galactic influences bathing the earth has been charted, accessed, and decoded through the Mayan calendar. As fate would have it, our guest this hour is Johan Calleman, leading expert on the Mayan calendar and the author of many fine books on the subject. Carl holds a Ph.D. in physical biology from the University of Stockholm. He's the author of many fine books on the subject. After this commercial break, I'll introduce Carl, and together we'll explore the Mayan calendar, the global mind, the evolution of human consciousness. Should be enlightening, so don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Linnea Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you were able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Wilda Wiecka. Our guest this hour is Johan Calleman, a leading expert on the Mayan Calendar and the author of many fine books on the subject. His website is www.calleman.com. That's CALLEMAN.com. Carl, thank you so much for joining us on the Science of Magic.
Oh, thank you so much, Wilda. I'm so happy to be on your show.
You've written brilliantly and extensively on the Mayan calendar. Where do you think the calendar originated?
Well, I think it reflects a reality that was downloaded, you might say, in different parts of the world, but it became the most articulate, the most sophisticated, and turned into a real calendar system by the Maya about, as far as we can track it, about 2,500 years ago. They then developed a calendar system that I think has something unique to contribute in the world. At first thought somebody might think this is just a small people, 5 million or so, maybe 10 million in ancient times, but somewhere in that range. And so you might wonder, why would that be so special? But I would say that the reason it's so special is that this was the people that in pre-Columbian America would have reached the highest level of civilization. In a sense, you might say that they correspond to the role that the old Greek would have in Europe. And so, in a sense, I would say this is a very condensed knowledge. It's in a sense, one of the most important contributions of the Native American people to the world, and that is really what I see as its origin.
You know, I understand that the Mayans that worked the calendar and translated it were both mathematician and shaman. Is that accurate, or do you know anything about that?
I would agree with that. They certainly, they still are in the region down there. That people, you would call them shaman in the sense that they do sort of go into other states and access information in other states than the normal rational mind that just sort of separates reality. So certainly they are shamans, but they also, what is so unique, you might say, is that their calendar system reflects a quite sophisticated mathematics. It was, it's really, I would say, this is really a science, but it's not a science that denies the spiritual aspects of reality. It's one that incorporates it, and which is really necessary if you truly are looking for some kind of a holistic understanding of the world, and not sort of just getting bits in different branches of knowledge or so forth. This is really, when you go deeper into it, you understand that this is the kind of science that integrates everything, that has the potential to bring everything together. And the reason is, I think, that they had attained some kind of a deeper understanding what time is, which is basically missing in the modern world. But once you have that understanding of time in the sense that they did, then you will really be able to put a lot of pieces together in a puzzle.
So what the Mayan calendar really maps, rather than time as we know it, is relativity and the influence of heavenly bodies. Is that correct?
No, I would not, probably not agree with that. What I think when I want to point to what makes the Mayan calendar special and different from the rest of the world, or the calendars of the rest of the world, I would say that all other calendars are based on the physical, material, astronomical reality. In other words, they are based on, for instance, our calendar today is a perfect reflection, the Gregorian Christian calendar that we're using is based on the revolution of the Earth around the Sun, and it has a tremendous precision down to fractions of seconds in determining that duration. And then there are other calendars like the Jewish and the Muslim calendars that are all about the moon's revolution around the Earth. Now these are physical cycles and the astronomical cycles. And I would say that that's what's different. The Mayan calendar system was not based on the astronomical reality. It was not based on the material reality. And it's for that very reason that it has something to teach us that is fundamentally different and fundamentally important. Their calendar system was based on the evolution of consciousness, of wave movements underlying the physical reality that is shaping the world, even though for the most part people are not aware of that. So it's sort of, it really connects to what you talked about earlier, shamanism. It's a way of connecting this. It's a calendar system that is a way of connecting to the world that we usually talk about as beyond. Describe a little bit then. When I first came to Mexico, which is probably 35 years ago or so, down in the south in Yucatan, and encountered Maya as well as their pyramids and so forth. What struck me as so amazing with their calendar system was that I found that they would look at different time periods, and they would use symbols to symbolize the qualities of these different time periods. And especially they would use animals, which again comes back to the shamanistic theme. but they would use totems, naguals, that would, so that each time period wasn't the same. They had different qualities. And people that were born in these different time periods, they had certain characteristics and so forth. And so what that tells us is that this is not just a calendar that is used to measure time. It's not just a quantitative time. It's one that describes the qualitative time, the changing qualities over time. And that is what they symbolize mostly by numbers, by deities, by naguales, and so forth. And you might say they did it on two different levels. One level was the very sort of personal, day-to-day living, where you would look at every day and see what nagual was dominating it. The other was to apply these energies, these symbols, to the large-scale evolution of the universe. And that's when you come to an understanding of how is evolution created, how did it go from the beginning of time to this universe we're living in at the present time. So it's sort of I would say it's sort of a calendar system that charts the underlying shifting energies of time that is behind all of evolution.
So you see the calendar not so much just cyclic, but evolutionary?
Yes. And thank you for that question. It's a big distinction to make because and it's like if you look at, for instance, European astrology, or what's usually called astrology, that is based on cycles that are identical. They just repeated identically time after time, like the year or the moon or something like that. And I'm not saying that there may not be energies attached to that, but what I am saying, though, that with that kind of a worldview, the universe would never go anywhere. It would just be repeating these cycles, and that's different because since the Mayan waves that they charted, it's not subordinated to the material reality. They are instead waves that are creating evolution. They have a sort of a waveform, but they never repeated identically. So every time there is a sort of a cyclical process, it's followed with another cyclical process. But the cyclical processes are not identical. Instead, they are step-by-step deepening whatever aspect of the evolution of the universe that comes with that particular wave.
So it sounds to me like you're talking about everything from physical events to what's happening at the quantum level is being considered in the charting of the Mayan calendar. Am I off out there?
Yeah. Yes, I think so. It's sort of it really has the whole quantum perspective, but it's a bigger quantum perspective in the sense that, you know, when we taught about quantum physics in science school or so forth, you know, it only applies to the microcosm, and it doesn't really have a lot of relevance to what is happening in the world at large. But the Mayan calendar describes similarly quanta, but it's on a completely different scale in such a way that it does make sense to study the evolution of our planet, of ourselves,
We're going to have to take a short break and pick up on this on the other side. This is just riveting. I'm really excited about that, how we can see the Mayan calendar working with quantum physics, and we'll go into how it affects people. Carl and I will return to our discussion after the news at the bottom of the hour. You're listening to The Science of Magic. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Previous broadcasts of thought-provoking episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. We'll be right back, so don't you go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerrean Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerrean Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. Visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Carl Johan Calleman, a leading expert on the Mayan calendar. He's the author of many fine books, including The Global Mind and the Rise of Civilization, The Quantum Evolution of Consciousness. His website, www.calleman.com. Welcome back, Carl. We were just having fun with the quantum level when I had to interrupt. Did you want to finish that thought?
Well, I think it's, if we talk a little bit more about quantum physics, what science has found over the past 100 years or so is that particles or matter that used to be thought of as being so solid, in reality, out there is really like waves, quanta. But we don't see the waves. We never directly see the waves. What happens is that when the waves come into our mind, they are transformed into electrical information, and we have the experience, for instance, of light and a particular color from having received that particular quanta. There's something similar here with the way that the Mayan calendar works. We don't see these waves that are out there in cosmos creating the cosmos. But yes, we are able to download them, and then it gives us a kind of I would say, like a spiritual calling or information in many ways that we're not always aware of, and it's sort of transformed through our brains into an understanding of what we're called to do, about how to perceive the world in a particular way. And the parallel that I'm stressing here is that there is sort of the world that is out there doesn't always, it's not really what we experience it as. These waves are really what's out there, not particles, not matter. But once we take them we receive the information from them, we come to perceive through a transformation that is happening in our brain. We come to perceive reality as material and having these colors and so forth. But out there, that's not the case. That's the transformation that is happening on our brain. And this applies both to the sort of classical quantum physics of a microcosm and light radiation and so forth, as well as to the large-scale wave that the Maya described that is behind the evolution of the universe. We don't really see it. It's something that's transformed through our minds, and we're affected by it.
So basically you're saying that our reality is our translation of what's happening at the quantum level.
Yes.
Nice. This leads me to a good question. What is the global mind as you speak of it?
Well, the global mind is the common perception, really, or at least the one, again, that we taught in schools and in science class, is that the mind is a product of the brain, that the brain somehow creates the mind. And I would say that is a fundamentally false idea. And instead, I would say that the mind is something that our brains are downloading. And they are downloading it exactly from these waves that the Mayan calendar described. And so you might say that our brains or we are tuning into a certain frequency of these waves. And when we tune into that, then we download a mind. Now, if the mind comes from the outside, and then it means that, this book, really, The Global Mind, is to show that the mind comes most immediately from the global mind, from the planet Earth. Ultimately, they come from the center of the universe, but that's another story. But they do come to the Earth. And then the people that are living on the surface of the Earth are downloading that mind. And we share a global mind, you might say. And this book deals a lot with the original rise of civilization on our planet. And the reason I've come into think about these matters is really that the rise of the first civilizations on our planet, like in Egypt and in Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley, it took place 5,000 years ago, which coincides then with the activation, according to the Mayan inscriptions, of a new wave that came then to the Earth and created a grid line, a grid system, I would say, across the Earth that humans came in resonance with. And as that happened, the minds of people were changing. This new grid line that was introduced at that time introduced straight lines, perpendicular lines, and what happened, what we can see sort of as a historical fact from that time that the Maya describe as the beginning of a new era, of a new globe, you might say, was that people started to build structures that were perpendicular, that were straight, and sometimes perfectly circular. So about that time, which is really, if you want to set it exactly 3115 BCE, you do find not only that people in Egypt and several other places of the world are starting to build pyramids that are straight and perpendicularly lined. They're based on straight and perpendicular lines. But at the same time, there's another aspect of a new geometry that was manifested. For instance, in the famous megalithic sites in the British Isles, in Stonehenge and Avebury and Newgrange, where perfect circles are being created, being manifested at exactly the same time. So you might wonder, why did this happen exactly at the same time as people in Egypt were starting to build pyramids? And why were people at the same time creating a civilization in Peru that also built pyramids? The first time that they built pyramids in the Americas. The way I explain it, and it's based on the inscriptions of the Maya about what happened at that particular time, is that the mind was created. We downloaded a new mind that was defined by perpendicular and straight lines. A geometry, you might say, a new geometry emanating from the center of the cosmos came to be downloaded. And so what I'm saying here are many things at the same time. One is that our minds is not a product of the brain. You know, if the mind was a product of the brain, then you would expect that civilization would have emerged stepwise, very randomly, over a long period of time, as people, came up with some new idea here and there. And that's not what's happening. What's happened on the planet 5,000 years ago was that at the same time, almost fully developed civilizations emerged. And the best way to explain that was that there was a shift in consciousness, that there was a shift in the global mind that gave structure to the thinking.
We're going to have to take another commercial break, Carl, but we'll take up on this on the other side. Carl and I will be back on the flip side of this commercial break. You're listening to The Science of Magic, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. You can always listen to previous transformative broadcasts on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. Our website is www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Carl Johan Calleman, a leading expert on the Mayan calendar and the author of many fine books, including The Global Mind, The Rise of Civilization, The Quantum Equation of Evolution of Consciousness. Carl's website is www.calleman.com. That's CALLEMAN.com. Carl, we were talking about the transformation of consciousness that happened that globally, that started the almost simultaneous building of pyramids and these great structures, and I can certainly see what you're talking about there, and that it didn't just a little bit here, a little bit there over a period of time, but this almost revolution of consciousness. Are we looking at something similar now?
I think what has happened, it's more complex to begin with, but I think to begin with, I also want to say that this is a way of looking at reality that I think is necessary in order to come to grips of where we are going in the future and what intentions we have for the future and how to manifest them. I think it's absolutely necessary for people to study this, the basic framework of the Mayan calendar in order to understand that. It's more complex than this, and I'm coming in December with a second book called The 9 Ways of Creation that will much more deal with the present time and how we came to the present time through the effects of these different waves. And the kind of shift in consciousness that we were just talking about that occurred at the beginning of the so-called long count was about 5,000 years ago. And it started a wave movement, which is actually only one of 9 different levels, 9 different waves that each is creating a certain kind of a mind. And at the current time, all of these 9 waves are, for the first time in the history of the universe, running together. And that means that they exist all as potentialities. It's not like the future is set in stone. But what changed in 2011 was that for the first time, the highest wave, the 9th wave, became accessible. It's something that it had not been possible to download it before that point in time. Now, this is not something that has sort of affected people across the board. If you look out in the world, you will see some people being really in tune with a new sort of unity consciousness. But you also see in the other end of existence, you see a lot of people that are going in the very opposite direction. And this has to do with the fact that we're downloading different aspects of the mind. And here intention comes in an important aspect. And this 9th wave that was activated in 2011 is really the first one that brings the possibility of unity consciousness. It's not about having a separating mind or a dualist mind, but a transcendence of that. But we should be aware that this wave, we do see its effects, but it's only been in effect for 5 years. And what that means, I mean, you mentioned a little bit earlier about children, and what that means is that especially the children that are being born into the possibility of this wave, they will be thinking much differently from the people that ourselves and also from earlier civilizations. But it will take some time until they grow up. And of course, we are also, we depending on our intentions, we can also tune into this wave, but the full blooming of this particular wave will take a couple of decades, I would say, until people really all have been born into that possibility and chosen to tune into it and download this new wave. So what the Mayan calendar describes is sort of a sequential activation of different possibilities carried by different waves with different frequencies, and so I don't expect that there is a sort of a sudden change where everything just shifts all across the board into this new way of looking at reality, which also means creating a different world. But I do believe that over time, increasingly, this wave will make itself known, and people will choose to resonate with it, because ultimately it gives them a more joyful life. Ultimately, it will give them a more peaceful relationships in all aspects, and so ultimately, I think that is where things are going to go. But it's a process that we're talking about the transformation of the whole planet with its 7 billion inhabitants, and it's a process.
Are you back there, Carl?
Yeah.
Okay, you were saying the process of the transforming from the old paradigm into the new one is going to take some time because a lot of people have to get on deck with it. Do you see as how each of us participating to the best of our ability by tuning into these new wavelengths of the unity consciousness is going to help that process?
I think so, absolutely. And on my website, I have a couple of articles in the blog, which is about tuning into the ninth wave. And there are a couple of in these articles there are references to different calculators and tools that people can use in order to learn to tune into this wave. And I think everything comes down to intention, certainly. But once you have the intention, if you do have an intention that and feel a calling that you want to be part of this transformation to a world of unity consciousness, then I think following the ninth wave and using the tools to do that is a part of that, because it helps you realize that this wave is a reality, and it also allows yourself to sort of monitor to what extent you are resonating with it or not, because there are many different waves, as I mentioned, and we sort of fall in and out of them, and there's no point in being judgmental about what we do. But yes, it's at the same time it is important to have this kind of a basis in this huge quantum universe to see what the waves are and to be aware of them, to see how it plays out in the world at large, but mostly for yourself as a tuning fork. So.
Carl, time flies, and we're out of it. It's just been so wonderful having you on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of the Science of Magic and sharing your wisdom with our listeners. This has been the Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to past thought-provoking episodes on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge and comforted with love as you embrace your personal evolution.
Searching through